harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel. Well, one of my favorite movies growing up was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It has one of the longest chase scenes I'd ever seen as a teenager. The outlaws were pursued by a completely tenacious posse of Mr. E.H. Harriman, the banker. And they went all throughout the West trying to escape. Eventually, they even got as far as Bolivia in South America, trying to get away. It was very exciting to watch. You may know how it turns out. Cat and mouse games test our problem solving, our commitment to a plan. And they test us and help us understand our idea that even we, can find our way out of the most difficult situation until we can't. And then we hit that dead end. Well, the story of God's people escaping slavery in Pharaoh's Egypt is one of cat and mouse. It is an epic story, but this one is different. Israel is not alone. And the end is the promised land. They do reach their goal, spoiler alert. We're going to learn that God's care doesn't stop at the border. It doesn't stop at salvation or once we first put our trust in Jesus. The Lord doesn't just drop in out of the blue when we've hit bottom, save us and move on. But the Lord goes with us every day and has a plan for our everyday after. There is a wonderful book that was popular a few years back called Who Moved the Cheese? Some of you probably read it for your businesses. It's about how we respond to change. And it's about mice going through a maze looking for their reward, the cheese. And they get used to finding it in the same place every time. That is, until the scientists move it. And then the mice have to figure out a new way, a new ending, a new process. And what you find is that everyone wants to know who moved the cheese. Why does there have to be change? I don't like change. Keep things the way they always are. Well, it's not just true for the Israelites, it's true for us. We don't like change. And when things change, we have a tendency to blame God. Say, God, did you move that cheese? Because I want it right back where I kept it. But here's the advantage of finding new pathways. We learn new skills. We even grow up a little bit. And the Hebrew people needed to learn new skills. They needed to learn about survival and taking care of themselves. They needed to learn that shortcuts weren't always shorter, and that choices have consequences. And of course, without Google Maps to direct them, they needed to learn that any turn could be a wrong turn if you're turning away from God. But what is so fascinating on this journey through the wilderness is the people learn a new identity. They're no longer slaves escaped from Egypt. They're no longer Hebrew people in a faraway land. They are God's people, and that's their identity, Israelites on their way home. That was the promise. The promise was that they would return to the land of their forefathers and their foremothers, and they would settle in and make it home again. This is the practice of the wilderness. Who are we? How do we be who we are? And who do we follow? The Israelites followed the Lord, and they were ready to claim their own origin and a new future. They don't understand that what looks like a dead end, the end of the game, checkmate, is actually the greatest move in history. God has a plan, and God will win the day. And we'll hear more about that next week. But first, I want to challenge you to think about where you've been in the past year or two. What has changed? What has caused you pause or even outright fear? Do you feel like you're trying to stay just one step ahead of that coronavirus? Or maybe another medical challenge? Or the banker? Or the regulations which stifle our freedom? Are you feeling like others around you don't really understand what it means to believe in the one true God who goes with us everywhere? That doubt starts to set in, and we wonder if God has moved and we no longer see him. Just trying to keep one foot in front of the other, hoping there is no dead end. But let me tell you about the King of Glory who walks with us and secures our hearts and our minds and our souls, and yes, even our bodies that we live in for a time. This is God's game, and it's for keeps. God has a plan for the world, and it's already come to pass. Because of the great reversal in history, that king took the one move that no one else could take. He rose from the dead in power and new life. And that belongs to all of us. Check and mate, God wins. And so do you. And so do I. Let's pray.